In the vast silent dark between stars, where distances are so immense they lose any familiar meaning, astronomers rely on a strange and beautiful idea to make sense of the void. It is a concept that serves as a bridge between our limited human perception and the actual scale of the cosmos, a unit that sounds like time but measures space. This is the story of how we measure the unreachable, a journey through the light year. Welcome to the Whispering Scientist. If you find comfort in drifting through these quiet explorations of the unknown, you are very welcome to settle in as we explore the distance we can't comprehend. At first glance, the term light year feels simple, almost deceptively so. Light moves quickly, and a year passes slowly. When you combine the two, the meaning seems straightforward, yet beneath that simplicity lies something deeply unintuitive. It is a distance defined not by steps, roads or maps, but by motion itself. It is the steady, unhurried movement of light across an expanding universe, carrying information from places so remote that their scale resists the grasp of the human imagination. For centuries, distance meant something physical and tangible. It was how far a journey felt in the legs, or how long it took to walk from one village to the next. Later, as our world expanded, distance was measured by how many days a ship spent at sea or how many hours a train spent on the tracks. Even now, in our modern world, distance is almost always tied to effort and time. We think of a commute as 40 minutes rather than 30 kilometers. We think of a flight as 6 hours rather than a vast stretch of ocean. But space does not cooperate with these terrestrial instincts. Beyond the safety of Earth's atmosphere, kilometers begin to stretch thin, losing their substance. Beyond the solar system, they collapse entirely. Numbers grow so large that they stop conveying any usable meaning and begin to blur into a grey abstraction. The light year emerged not as a poetic invention to spark wonder, but as a practical necessity, a way for the mind to describe separation without drowning in an endless sea of zeros. It is a way to talk about stars, galaxies, and the very structure of the cosmos using the one thing that moves reliably through the vacuum, light itself. Tonight's journey is not about memorizing cold figures or racing across cosmic scales in a frantic search for an end. It is about slowly approaching an idea that feels familiar on the surface yet becomes stranger and more profound the longer it is held in the mind. It is about what it truly means to say that something is light years away. Why does that distance feel so fundamentally different from anything we experience on Earth? How does this single unit quietly reshape the way we understand the universe? As you listen, let the distance stretch gently around you. Allow the question to unfold at its own pace, without any pressure to reach a destination. How far is a light year, really? Distance feels intuitive on Earth because it was learned slowly through bodies that walk, eyes that judge depth, and lives that unfold at a human speed. We understand a few steps across a room or a short walk to a nearby street. We understand a longer journey that takes an afternoon or perhaps a week of travel. These are distances shaped by muscle, breath, and the limits of our patience. Our human intuition was formed in this narrow, comfortable range. Evolution had no reason to prepare the mind for an emptiness that stretches millions of times farther than the horizon. For our ancestors, survival depended on judging whether a jump could be made across a stream, whether a shelter was close enough to reach before the sunset, or whether food was within a manageable radius of the camp. The distance was personal, it was immediate, it was tied to effort and the immediate consequence of that effort. Even as our technology expanded that range, our intuition lagged. Car journeys compress hundreds of kilometers into a single afternoon, yet the experience still unfolds for us as a sequence of landmarks, pauses, and moments of waiting. Flights shrink entire continents to a few hours, but they remain wrapped in familiar sensations of movement, vibration, and eventual arrival. No matter how fast our travel becomes, the distances remain anchored to our schedules and our physical bodies. Space offers no such anchor. Beyond Earth, distance disconnects from effort almost immediately. The moon, which sits close enough to see clearly with the naked eye on a crisp night, lies far enough away that even at the speed of a modern jet aircraft, it would take weeks of continuous flight to reach. Light, moving faster than anything in the known universe, still needs just over a second to cross that gap. Already, even at our closest neighbor, intuition begins to slip through our fingers like sand. If we extend that distance to the sun, the numbers become even harder to hold. Sunlight takes just over 8 minutes to reach Earth. This means the warmth you feel on your skin on a summer afternoon actually began its journey while you were still making breakfast or waiting for a kettle to heat. This delay is small enough to sound trivial in a conversation, yet it is large enough to quietly disrupt our fundamental idea of immediacy. The sun is never where it appears to be in the sky, it is always seen as it was in the past. As we move outward past the orbit of the outer planets, kilometers and miles start to lose their grip on reality entirely. These units were designed for roads, maps and national borders. They work beautifully when a dist. Ants can be crossed, even if it is crossed slowly. In the vastness of space, these units inflate into long strings of digits that convey precision without providing any real understanding. Saying that a star is trillions of kilometers away communicates a mathematical accuracy, but it does not foster comprehension. The mind hears the number, nods politely at the data, and then lets it drift away into the dark. This is where the true strangeness of our universe begins to manifest. Space demands a different way of thinking, one that replaces the concept of movement with the concept of waiting. Instead of asking how long it would take us to travel somewhere, we must ask how long light takes to arrive. Distance becomes something passive. It is not a journey to be made, but a message already in transit through the night. This shift in thinking is subtle, yet it is profound. On Earth, distance is something that can usually be shortened by our will. We build faster vehicles, straighter roads, and better plans to overcome the space between 2 points. In the deep of space, distance is not waiting to be overcome by our ambition. It simply exists, indifferent to our speed or our desires. Even the fastest spacecraft ever launched by human hands would take tens of thousands of years to reach the very nearest stars. At that scale, travel stops being a realistic concept and becomes a mere thought experiment. The human brain resists this idea instinctively. It wants motion, it wants progress, and it craves the satisfaction of arrival. It wants to imagine ourselves drifting forward slowly but surely until a destination finally appears on the horizon. But space offers something different. It offers drifting without arrival and waiting without change. It is a calm, unbroken separation that does not care whether it is being crossed at all. Scientific institutions that spend their days studying the reaches of space are well aware of this cognitive mismatch between our brains and the reality of the cosmos. Astronomers and physicists often describe distance using layered metaphors, not because the science itself is unclear, but because human intuition needs help to bridge the gap. Organizations routinely explain cosmic scales by compressing them into familiar comparisons, even while knowing those comparisons will eventually fail as the scale grows. The numbers can be written down with perfect precision, but that precision does not guarantee the peace of comprehension. What makes this even stranger is that space is, for the most part, entirely empty. Between planets, between stars, and between galaxies, there is very little to mark our progress. On Earth, distance is broken up by the texture of terrain, by buildings, trees, and the shifting horizons. In space, there are no such cues to guide us. You can drift millions of kilometers and see absolutely nothing change. The absence of landmarks strips away the distance of its texture, leaving it smooth, silent, and difficult to sense. This emptiness plays tricks on our perception, making two stars that appear side by side in the night sky actually be separated by hundreds of light years. They look close only because our vision collapses depth when the scale exceeds our experience. Space turns depth into a beautiful illusion, inviting us to look deeper into the silence. To truly understand the light year, we must first confront the limitations of the maps we carry in our minds. For a human being, a map is a record of places that can be reached, a series of coordinates that promise an arrival if enough effort is exerted. Our internal mapping system is built on the scale of the stride, the reach of the arm, and the distance a voice can carry across a quiet field. On Earth, the map is a crowded thing, filled with the textures of mountains, the winding paths of rivers, and the solid boundaries of cities. When we look at a map of a country, we instinctively translate the inches of paper into days of driving or hours of walking. But when we turn our gaze toward the stars, this mapping instinct, this habit of equating distance with reachable destinations, begins to falter. The cosmic scale is not just a larger version of the human scale, it is a different category of reality altogether. It is a realm where the very idea of a map must change from a guide for travelers into a ledger of light. The struggle to visualize a light year begins with our reliance on the kilometer or the mile. These units are perfectly suited for a world that has a surface. On a planet, you are always moving across something, whether it is soil, water, or air. There is a friction to the journey that gives the distance a physical weight. If you were to set out on a walk to cover a mere 1,000 kilometers, your body would record every meter of that distance in the weariness of your joints and the rhythm of your breath. By the time you finished, the number would have a profound, visceral meaning. But space offers no such resistance. It is a vacuum so profound that it strips away the physical sensation of travel. Without air resistance or terrain pull, distance becomes abstract. It becomes a mathematical property rather than a lived experience. This is why, as we move away from Earth, the units we use to measure our world begin to feel like toys. They are simply too small, too fragile, to contain the emptiness that lies between the worlds. Consider for a moment the fastest speed most of us will ever experience, the cruising velocity of a commercial jet. At 900 kilometers per hour, the world below becomes a blur of colors and shapes, and we feel as though we are conquering the planet. Yet, if you were to point that same jet toward the nearest star and fly without ever stopping for fuel or rest, the journey would stretch on for over 1,000,000 years. The civilizations that built the jet would have risen and fallen, and perhaps even the human species would have evolved into something else long before the aircraft reached its destination. This is the central problem of the cosmic scale. It is not just that the distances are large, it is that they are so large they exceed the time frames of human history. When we speak of light years, we are speaking of gaps in the universe that cannot be bridged by the things we build, only by the light we see. The human map is also a map of the now. When you look across a valley at a distant house, you are seeing that house as it exists in the present moment, or very nearly so. The time it takes for light to travel across a few kilometers is so infinitesimal that our brains treat it as instantaneous. We live in a world of perceived immediacy. If a light turns green, we see it the moment it happens. If a friend waves from across a park, we see the gesture as it is made. This creates a deep-seated belief that seeing is an act of real-time observation. However, the cosmic scale shatters this illusion of the present. Because space is so vast, light must spend a significant amount of time traveling from its source to our eyes. In our planetary neighborhood, this delay is a few seconds or minutes, but as we move into the realm of light years, the delay becomes the defining feature of the map. The cosmic map is not a map of space as it is, but a map of space as it was. Every star you see in the night sky is a ghost of a previous time. Some stars are seen as they were 10 years ago, others as they were 1,000 years ago. If a star 10 light years away were to suddenly vanish tonight, we would continue to see it shining brightly in our sky, or another decade. We would continue to map it, name it, and navigate by it even though it no longer exists. This is the fundamental disconnect between the human map and the cosmic scale. Our maps assume that the things we mark on them are still there. The universe makes no such promise. It is a vast layered record of the past, where every distance is also a duration. To look out into the night is to look through a telescope into history, seeing the universe not as a single simultaneous event, but as a series of echoes arriving at different times. To help the mind adjust to this, we must look at the way light itself behaves as a messenger. Light is the only thing in the universe that moves fast enough to make these distances even remotely comprehensible. And yet, it is still slow compared to the size of the gaps it must cross. Imagine light as a steady, patient traveler that never tires and never wavers. It does not rush despite its incredible speed. It simply moves at the maximum pace allowed by the laws of physics. In 1 second, it can circle the Earth 7 times. In 1 year, it covers 9.5 trillion kilometers. That single year of travel is our basic unit for the cosmic map. By using the light year, we are essentially giving up on the idea of measuring space with rulers. Instead, we are measuring it with the ticking of a universal clock. We are saying that a star is not far away in the way a mountain is far away. We are saying it is distant in time. This shift in perspective is what allows astronomers to remain calm in the face of such overwhelming scale. If they were to think only in kilometers, the sheer number of zeros would eventually paralyze the imagination. But thinking in light years, the universe becomes a structured, orderly place. It becomes a series of concentric spheres of time radiating outward from the Earth. The first sphere contains the Moon and the nearby planets, a world measured in light seconds and minutes. The next sphere contains the nearest stars, measured in handfuls of light years. Beyond that, the spheres grow to encompass the entire galaxy, measured in tens of thousands of light years, and eventually the clusters of galaxies, measured in millions. Each sphere is a chapter in the story of the universe, and the light year is the language in which that story is written. As you drift further into this thought, let the familiar boundaries of your world fade. The human map, with its roads and its reachable horizons, is a beautiful and necessary thing for life on a planet. But it is a local map. It belongs to the surface of a small blue world. The cosmic scale invites you to set aside the urgency of arrival and the need for immediate feedback. It asks you to accept a universe where distance is silent, where travel is measured in lifetimes, and where the light you see tonight is a gift from a distant past. By letting go of the kilometer and embracing the light year, you are not losing your way. You are simply learning a larger way to be lost. You are recognizing that we live in a house of vast, quiet rooms, separated by hallways of time. That light takes years to walk. There is a profound peace in this recognition, a sense that the universe is not crowded or hurried, but spacious enough to hold every star in its own perfect isolation. In the quiet stillness of the night, when you look up at the stars, there is a natural assumption that what you are seeing is happening right now. It is perhaps the most persistent and beautiful illusion of the human experience. Our brains were wired on a small, fast-moving planet where the speed of light is so great that it seems to be infinite. When you turn on a lamp, the room is flooded with light instantly. When you look across a table at a loved one, you see their smile at the very moment it forms. Because of this, we have developed a deep, instinctive belief in the now. We believe that the universe exists in a single, synchronized moment of time, and that our eyes are windows looking out onto that simultaneous reality. But the deeper we move into the cosmos, and the more we use the light year as our guide, the more this illusion begins to crumble. We must accept a strange and meditative truth. In the vastness of space, the present moment does not exist in the way we think it does. This realization starts close to home, with the very light that sustains us. When you step outside and feel the warmth of the sun on your face, you are feeling energy that left the solar surface roughly 8 minutes and 20 seconds ago. If the sun were to somehow vanish at this very heartbeat, you would continue to see it shining in the sky for nearly 8.5 minutes. You would see the light, you would feel the heat, and the Earth would continue its orbit around a ghost. For those 8 minutes, you would be living in a reality that no longer has a source. This delay is the first crack in the illusion of the present. It teaches us that even our most vital connection to the universe is filtered through a lag, a gap in time that we cannot bridge. We are always looking into the past, even when we are looking at our own sun. It is a gentle reminder that the now is a local luxury, a side effect of living on a small scale. As we move our gaze further out, past the planets and toward the nearest stars, the gap between seeing and happening stretches from minutes into years. This is the realm where the light year becomes the dominant law of perception. When you look at Proxima Centauri, the closest star to our sun, you are seeing it as it was over 4 years ago. The photons entering your eyes tonight began their journey through the vacuum while the world was in a different season of history. If that star had undergone a massive change or even flickered out 3 years ago, we would have no way of knowing yet. The news of its transformation is still traveling, moving at the maximum speed possible, yet still hindered by the sheer volume of space it must cross. In this sense, a light year is more than just a measurement of distance, it is a measurement of the history that separates us. Every star is its own island of time, operating on its own clock, sending out messages that take years to arrive at our shore. This creates a universe that is layered, like the rings of an ancient tree. When you look at the night sky, you are not looking at a single picture, you are looking at a composite of thousands of different eras all at once. A star nearby might be 10 years in the past, while a star slightly to the left, appearing just as bright, might be 1,000 years in the past. Further still, the faint smudge of a distant galaxy might be showing you light that began its trek before humans even walked the Earth. There is no such thing as a universal present that we can observe. The farther away an object is, the deeper into the past we are forced to look. This means that the sky is a living museum, a gallery where the exhibits are organized by their distance from us. We are never seeing the universe as it is, we are only ever seeing it as it was. For many, this idea can feel a bit lonely or unsettling, as if we are forever disconnected from the truth of the current moment. But if we shift our perspective, there is a profound comfort to be found in this delay. It means the universe is never truly empty or gone. It is preserved in the light that is currently traveling toward us. The light year ensures that the history of the cosmos is never lost. It is simply in transit. Because of the finite speed f-light, we can actually see the evolution of the universe with our own eyes. By looking at a galaxy millions of light years away, we are seeing the universe when it was younger, more energetic and perhaps more chaotic. We don't have to guess how the cosmos began. We can look far enough away that we are actually watching the early chapters unfold. The distance we can't comprehend is also the bridge that allows us to witness the birth of everything. This layer of time also changes how we think about connection. On Earth, we think of connection as something that happens through interaction, a conversation, a touch, a shared moment. In a universe measured by light years, connection is a one-way gift. We are the recipients of ancient energy, observers of events that ended long before we were born. There is some grace in this arrangement. It removes the pressure of the present. It suggests that we are part of a vast, slow-moving narrative that does not require our immediate intervention. The stars do not need us to see them in real time. They simply continue to shine, releasing their light into the dark, trusting that eventually, after years of traveling, it will find an eye to receive it. This is a form of patience that is almost impossible to imagine on a human scale, yet it is the heartbeat of the cosmos. Scientists and astronomers have learned to work within this illusion, using the delay as a tool rather than a hindrance. When they talk about the age of the universe, they are talking about the limit of how far we can see. They understand that the present moment for a distant quasar is something we will never witness in our lifetimes. They have traded the desire for immediacy for the depth of history. They have accepted that we are living in a universe of echoes. By embracing the light year, they have learned to read the sky like a book where every page is a differ. ENT distance, and every distance, is a different time. It is a way of organizing the infinite into something that can be understood piece by piece as the light arrives. As you lie here and let these thoughts drift through your mind, try to imagine the beams of light currently traveling toward you. They are moving through the cold, silent gaps between stars, carrying images of distant worlds and ancient suns. They have been moving for years, decades, centuries just to reach this point in space. There is no rush in their journey. They do not tire. They simply move forward, steady and true. When you eventually see them, you are participating in a conversation that spans the ages. The now may be an illusion, but the connection is real. You are part of a universe that takes its time, a universe that is spacious enough to hold the past and the present in the same quiet gaze. Let the weight of the present fall away and allow yourself to drift in the vast overlapping timelines of the stars. You are not just in space, you are in time, and the light is finally reaching you. In the quiet architecture of the cosmos, there exists a fundamental rule that governs every interaction, every distance, and every moment of existence. It is not a law written in a book or a regulation imposed by an authority, but a property of reality itself. We call it the speed of light, but in a deeper sense, it is the speed of causality, the maximum pace at which any piece of information, any influence, or any event can ripple across the fabric of space. This limit is the reason the light year exists. If light could travel instantly, the universe would be a crowded, immediate place where every star would be seen as it is in this exact heartbeat. But the universe is not immediate, it is patient. It is built around a specific, unchanging velocity of approximately 300,000 kilometers per second. This constant is the heartbeat of the Whispering Scientist's exploration tonight, a steady rhythm that ensures the universe remains spacious, and its history remains preserved in the dark. To understand why this speed limit matters, we have to look at what light actually is. It is not a substance that flows like water, nor is it a physical object that can be pushed to go faster with enough energy. Light is a wave of electromagnetic energy, a ripple in the invisible fields that permeate every corner of the universe. Because these fields have a specific tension and a specific structure, they can only support a ripple at one specific speed. Imagine a tightly drawn string on a musical instrument. No matter how hard you pluck it, the vibration travels through the string at a speed determined by the string's own properties. The vacuum of space is like that string. It has a fundamental stiffness that dictates how fast light can move. This means that 300,000 kilometers per second isn't just a high number, it is the absolute threshold of the universe. It is the cosmic speed limit, a barrier that nothing with mass can ever cross, and that light itself can never exceed. This fixed speed gives the universe its most important characteristic, consistency. Because light never hurries and never slows down, it becomes the ultimate ruler and the ultimate clock. On Earth, we are used to things changing speed based on how much force is applied. A car can go faster if you press the pedal. A bird can fly faster if the wind is behind its wings. But light refuses to play by these rules. Whether a star is moving toward us or away from us, the light it emits always reaches us at exactly the same speed. This stubborn reliability is what allowed scientists to realize that space and time are not fixed, separate things, but are woven together into a single fabric. To keep speed of light constant, the universe is willing to stretch space and bend time. It is as if the cosmos values the consistency of light's journey above all else, ensuring that the light year remains a stable and dependable measure of the vast distances we can't comprehend. When we think about this speed limit, it is easy to focus on how fast it seems. In a second, a beam of light could travel around our entire planet 7.5 times. It is a speed so great that for most of human history we believed light was instantaneous. We thought that seeing was an act that happened in no time at all. But as our instruments became more sensitive and our reach grew longer, we began to see the lag in the system. We realized that even at this incredible velocity, the universe is so large that light often looks like it is crawling. When we use the light year to measure the distance to a star, we are acknowledging that even the fastest thing in existence is dwarfed by the scale of the void. The speed limit isn't a sign of the universe's power, but a measure of its profound, quiet vastness. It takes time for news to travel. It takes time for the universe to communicate with itself. This delay creates a beautiful order. Because information cannot travel faster than light, different parts of the universe are shielded from one another. If a distant star were to explode in a violent supernova, the Earth wouldn't feel the effects of that event instantly. We are protected by the speed limit. The light and energy from that explosion must walk across the light years, 1 kilometer at a time, taking centuries or even millennia to arrive. This ensures that the universe is not a chaotic mess of simultaneous events, but a staggered sequence of arrivals. It gives every point in space its own horizon, a limit to what it can see and what can affect it. Living in a universe with a speed limit means living in a universe that has a built-in sense of privacy and isolation. Every star system is allowed to develop and age in its own bubble of time, connected to the rest of the cosmos only by the slow, steady streams of light that cross the dark. For the human mind, this can be a difficult concept to rest with. We are a species of right now. We want our messages sent instantly, our answers delivered immediately, and our travel to be as fast as possible. The universal speed limit feels like a wall, a restriction on our desire to explore and understand, But there is quiet wisdom at the limit. If light were infinite, the entire night sky would be as bright as the surface of the sun, as the light from every star in every direction would hit our eyes all at once. The darkness of night itself is proof of the speed limit. It tells us that the universe is so large and light is so finite that the light from the most distant stars simply hasn't had enough time to reach us yet. The darkness is a blanket that allows us to sleep, a result of the universe's refusal to be hurried. It is a reminder that some things are meant to be distant, and some stories are meant to take a long time to be told. As you listen to the steady rhythm of these thoughts, try to imagine the light year not as a number, but as a path. Picture a single photon, a tiny grain of light, beginning its journey from a star on the far side of the galaxy. It moves with a silent, unwavering purpose. It does not encounter any traffic. It does not need to navigate. It simply moves through the emptiness at that perfect, unchanging speed. It passes through clouds of gas and dust, slides past the gravity of other stars, and crosses through the vast, cold nothingness that makes up most of our universe. It does this for a year, then 10 years, then 100. It never tires. It never wonders how much further. It has to go. It is the ultimate expression of patience. The universal speed limit is what gives that journey its dignity. It ensures that every light year is earned, and every image we see is a hard-won transmission from the depths of time. In the laboratories of Earth, scientists have tried to find ways around this limit, searching for shortcuts through space or particles that might move faster. But the universe remains firm. The speed of light is the anchor of reality. It is the constant that holds the equations of physics together and ensures that cause always precedes effect. Without this limit, the universe's logic would unravel. By accepting the speed of light as the maximum, we are accepting a universe that has an inherent structure, a universe where distance matters and where time has a meaning. We are residents of a cosmos that values travel as much as destination. The light year is our way of honoring that journey, a unit that acknowledges the time it takes for the universe to reveal its secrets to us. Let yourself drift now, imagining the vast, silent speed of light as a soothing, constant presence. It is the silent messenger that connects you to the furthest reaches of the stars, moving at a pace that is both incredibly fast and wonderfully slow. You are part of a system that is regulated by light, a reality that doesn't rush because it doesn't need to. The stars are far, the light years are many, and the speed is fixed. In this realization, there is a profound sense of security. The universe is not a place of sudden, unpredictable shifts. It is a place of steady, measured movement. The speed limit is the boundary that keeps the cosmos in balance, and the light year is the measure of that perfect, quiet equilibrium. Rest in the knowledge that the light is on its way, moving at its own pace, crossing the distance we can't comprehend, just to reach you. 4M. Ost of human history, the act of measuring the world was an act of physical contact. To know the length of a field, one had to walk it, heel to toe, counting the paces until the boundary was reached. To know the height of a wall, one used the span of a hand or the length of a forearm. Our earliest rulers were our own bodies, and our sense of distance was inseparable from the effort required to cross it. This was a history written in wood, stone, and bone, a time when a kilometer was a significant journey and the horizon was the ultimate limit of human concern. But as we began to look upward, away from the familiar dirt and toward the cold glow of the stars, we realized that our physical rulers were far too small for the task at hand. We needed a new kind of measure, one that could account for distances that no human foot would ever tread. We needed to transition from a history of steps to a history written in the very movement of the stars. The evolution of the ruler is, in many ways, the story of our expanding consciousness. In the beginning, we measured the sky as a flat map, a decorative dome where the stars were merely points of light arranged in patterns. Distance in the heavens had no depth. A star that appeared bright was assumed to be large or close, while a dim one was thought to be small or far, but there was no way to prove the difference. We were like children looking at a painting, unable to see the perspective hidden within the brushstrokes. The first real attempt to break this flat perspective came from the ancient realization that the Earth moved. By observing how nearby objects shifted against a distant background as we traveled around the sun, we found our first cosmic yardstick. This was the birth of the geometric ruler, a way to use the math of triangles to reach out into the dark. Yet even this tool had its limits. Geometry can only reach so far before the angles become too sharp to measure, and the stars we sought to understand remained stubbornly out of reach. As our telescopes improved and our understanding of physics deepened, we began to see that the universe was not a static collection of objects, but a dynamic flow of energy. We discovered that light, which we had always treated as an instantaneous presence, was actually a traveler. This was the moment the ruler changed forever. We stopped trying to measure space with static lengths and started measuring it with the passage of time. The light year was born from this realization. It was an acknowledgement that in a universe this vast, a physical ruler is useless. Instead, we must use the one thing that connects every point in the cosmos, the steady, unwavering flight of a photon. By adopting the light year, we effectively turned the entire universe into a historical record. We stopped asking how big and started asking how long. A star's distance became a statement of its age in our eyes. The sky map became a timeline of the deep past. This shift from physical rulers to light-based rulers represents a profound change in how we perceive our place in the cosmos. On Earth, a ruler is a tool of ownership and control. We measure land to divide it, we measure heights to build, and we measure distances to conquer them. But a light year is a ruler that cannot be possessed. It is a measure of our patience and our capacity to wait for the universe to reveal itself. When an astronomer says a galaxy is 1,000,000 light-years away, they are using a ruler that spans a history far longer than the existence of our species. They are using a ruler that acknowledges the immense silence that lies between us and the rest of reality. It is a humble measure, one that acknowledges that we are observers of a grander story that we cannot reach out and touch. We can only watch as the light arrives, carrying the measurements of a distance we can't comprehend. The history of these rulers also reflects our struggle with the sheer scale of existence. When we started calculating the distance to the stars, the numbers were so large they were almost offensive to the human mind. To say that the nearest star system is 40 trillion kilometers away is to say something that has no meaning to a brain evolved to find berries and avoid predators. Trillions are not numbers, they are abstractions that cause the mind to shut down. The light year was a way to rescue our sanity. It allowed us to replace those crushing, unreadable figures with something that feels almost manageable. 4 light years sounds like a short time, a presidential term or a college education. It gives us a handle on the infinite, a way to fold the vastness of space into a shape that fits inside a human thought. But we must be careful not to let the familiarity of the word year deceive us. Beneath that gentle term lies a distance that would swallow our entire world 1,000,000,000 times over. Within the scientific community, the development of these rulers required a level of precision that is difficult to imagine. To measure a light year, one must first know the speed of light with absolute certainty, and then one must be able to track the movement of stars with an accuracy that rivals measuring the width of a human hair from miles away. Organizations like the International Astronomical Union have spent decades refining these definitions, ensuring that when we speak of a light year, we are all using the same cosmic yardstick. This shared language is what allows a scientist in one part of the world to collaborate with another on the opposite side of the planet, both of them looking at the same distant star and agreeing on the history it represents. It is a testament to our desire for Order I, a universe that often seems chaotic. We have taken the void and marked it with rulers made of light, turning the emptiness into a structured gallery of time. There is also a poetic irony in the fact that our most accurate rulers are based on the thing that is most difficult to catch. Light is weightless, intangible, and impossible to hold, yet it is the most reliable measure we have. We have moved from the solid certainty of the meter bar to the ethereal drift of the photon. This mirrors our own journey as a species as we move from a purely physical existence to one defined by information and observation. We are no longer limited by how far we can reach. We are limited only by how far we can see. The light year is the ultimate expression of this new reality. It is a ruler that grows as we grow, extending our reach further into the past and deeper into the dark with every new telescope we launch. It is a history written in the arrival of ancient signals, a ledger that records the birth and death of stars in units of our own calendar. As you reflect on these cosmic rulers, try to imagine the universe as a vast library where the books are not arranged by subject, but by their distance from the entrance. The closest books are the stories of our own sun and planets, written in minutes and hours. As you walk deeper into the stacks, the stories become older, written in years, then centuries, then millions of millennia. The light year is the categorization system that allows us to navigate this library without becoming overwhelmed. It tells us which stories belong to the present and which belong to the ancient foundations of the world. It is a system that demands respect for the time it takes for a story to be told. You cannot skip to the end of a cosmic chapter. You must wait for the light to cross the distance, carrying the history of the stars to your eyes. Rest now in the quiet order of this measured universe. The distances are vast, but they are not lawless. They are governed by the steady pace of light and the reliable ticking of the years. The rulers we use may have changed from wood to light, but the purpose remains the same: to find our place in the world and to understand our relationship to the things we see. You are living in a universe that has been carefully mapped, not with footsteps, but with the patient observation of a species that refuse to be limited by the horizon. The light year is your connection to that grand history, a ruler that stretches from your very eyes to the beginning of time. Let the scale of it soothe you, knowing that every star is exactly where the light says it is, and every distance is a story waiting to be heard. To understand the true necessity of the light year, we must first look at the moment our terrestrial tools failed us. On Earth, the mile is a measuring titan. It is the unit of marathon, cross-country trip, and the height of the atmosphere. It is a distance we can respect, because we can visualize it in the length of a long road or the stretch of a coastline. For most of our history, the kilometer was the ultimate ruler. Even as we began to explore our own solar system, we clung to it with a sense of familiarity. We mapped the distance to the moon in hundreds of thousands of kilometers, and the distance to the sun in millions. These numbers were large, yes, but they were still within the realm of human record-keeping. We could write them down on a page without the digits spilling over the margins. But as our gaze moved beyond the last lonely outposts of our sun's influence, we encountered a barrier that the kilometer simply could not cross. It was not a physical wall, but a mathematical one. The kilometer did not just become inconvenient, it collapsed under the sheer crushing weight of cosmic vacancy. This collapse happened because the universe does not scale in a way that our brains find comfortable. On a planet, things are generally proportional. A city is a few dozen kilometers wide, a continent is a few thousand, but the gap between the edge of our solar system and the very nearest star is not a step up in scale. It is a leap into an entirely different dimension of emptiness. If we were to use the kilometer to measure the distance to Proxima Centauri, we would have to write down the number 40 trillion. In a laboratory or a ledger, that number is 40 followed by 12 zeros. While we can say the word trillion quite easily, we cannot feel it. We cannot visualize 40 trillion of anything. If you were to try and count 40 trillion kilometers one by one at a rate of one number per second, you would not finish for over 1,000,000 years. The unit we designed to measure our world had become a burden, a string of digits so long that they stripped the universe of its beauty and replaced it with the cold, unreadable noise of high-level accounting. When a unit of measurement fails, it takes our intuition with it. The moment we have to start using scientific notation or reciting strings of zeros that we can't mentally group together, we lose our sense of place. This is why kilometers collapsed in deep space. It made the universe feel not vast, but cluttered. It made the stars feel like they were separated by an impossible amount of stuff, rather than a clean, elegant stretch of time. Astronomers realized that if they continued to use terrestrial units, every conversation about the galaxy would be drowned in numerical exhaustion. They needed a way to clear the air, to simplify the language of the cosmos, so that they could focus on the relationships between the stars rather than the bookkeeping of the distance. They needed a unit that could act as a filter, removing the unnecessary complexity of the small scale to reveal the grand architecture of the large. The light year was the solution that allowed the kilometer to retire gracefully from the interstellar stage. There is a specific kind of mental fatigue that sets in when we try to force a small tool to do a giant's work. Imagine trying to measure the distance across an ocean using a standard school ruler. Technically, it is possible. You could flip that ruler over billions of times, keeping a meticulous tally of every 30 centimeters. But by the time you reached the other side, the number of rulers would be so astronomical that you would have no real understanding of how far you had actually traveled. The ruler, while accurate, would have failed its primary purpose, to provide context. This is exactly what happened a kilometer beyond Pluto's orbit. It provided accuracy without providing comprehension. It gave us a precise count of the void, but it stole our ability to feel the scale. By switching to light years, we essentially traded a billion tiny rulers for a single, massive one. We've traded trillions of fatigue for simplicity. In the history of science, this transition was a quiet revolution. It represented a fundamental admission that space is not just more Earth. It is a different environment entirely, one that requires a different set of senses and a different way of keeping time. The collapse of the kilometer was the moment humanity finally accepted that the universe is not designed for us to walk across. It is an environment of light and radiation, and therefore it must be measured in the language of light. Scientific organizations like NASA and the European Space Agency still use kilometers for the precise engineering of their probes, calculating the exact thrust needed to enter an orbit or the timing of a landing. But the moment they speak of E-stars, they shift. They leave the kilometer behind at the edge of the atmosphere, recognizing that it is a planetary tool, a souvenir from a world where distances have an end. In the deep, a light year is the only thing that remains light enough to carry. This collapse also serves as a profound psychological anchor. It reminds us of our own specific place in the order of things. We live in a kilometer-sized world, and that is where we belong. Our lives are measured in the blocks we walk, the roads we drive, and the altitude of the clouds. When we see the kilometer fail, it gives us a visceral sense of just how large the outside really is. It creates a boundary between the domestic and the cosmic. The fact that our most reliable unit of measurement becomes useless just a few light hours from home is a humbling realization. It suggests that we are residents of a small, cozy room in a house that is unimaginably large. The kilometer is the measurement of the room. The light year is the measurement of the foundations of the world itself. By letting the kilometer collapse, we are allowing the universe to be as big as it needs to be, without trying to force it into the narrow boxes of our own experience. As you reflect on the falling away of these small units, let your mind feel the weightlessness that follows. Without the trillions of kilometers to track, the space between the stars becomes a clean, open expanse. It is no longer a math problem to be solved, but a quiet gap to be respected. The light year takes over the heavy lifting, allowing you to think of the distance as a single, smooth duration. A star that is 10 light years away is no longer a nightmare of 40 trillion units. It is simply 10 years of patient light. This simplification is a gift to the human spirit. It allows us to look at the night sky and see a pattern rather than a calculation. It allows us to feel the galaxy's depth without being overwhelmed by the noise of the numbers. The kilometer had to break so that our imagination could finally fly. Rest now in the simplicity that remains. The world you know is still there, measured in the familiar kilometers that take you home, to work, and to the people you love. But the universe beyond is free of those constraints. It has its own rhythm, its own scale, and its own quiet way of being. By accepting that some things are too big for our everyday rulers, we are opening ourselves up to a deeper kind of knowing. We are letting the universe speak to us in its own terms, through the steady arrival of light and the slow passing of the years. The collapse of the kilometer was not a loss, but a graduation. We have moved beyond the small measures of our childhood and stepped into the vast adult reality of the cosmos. Let the silence of the light year fill the gaps where the numbers used to be, and drift into the peaceful, unmeasured dark. The transition from our immediate, tactile world to the vast, silent stretches of deep space requires a bridge made not of steel or stone, but of time itself. We are creatures of the second. Our hearts beat in seconds, our thoughts flicker in fractions of them, and our reflexes are honed to respond to the world in the blink of an eye. The second is the fundamental heartbeat of human existence, the small increment that defines our now. But as we look toward the stars, we find that the second is far too fleeting to capture the scale of the heavens. To understand the light year, we must learn to walk across the bridge that connects these tiny ticks of the clock to the grand sweeping duration of the year. This is the process of scaling our perception, of stretching the second until it encompasses the vast history of a solar journey. It is a meditative exercise in expansion, moving from the rhythm of the breath to the rhythm of the cosmos, guided by the steady, unhurried movement of light as it weaves the two together. The first step onto this bridge begins at the moon. When we look at our closest celestial neighbor, we are seeing a distance that light can cross in just about 1.3 seconds. This is the light second, the smallest meaningful unit on our cosmic map. It is a distance of roughly 300,000 kilometers, a span that feels enormous by earthly standards, but is effectively the front porch of our world. A light second is a distance we can almost feel. If you were to have a conversation with someone on the moon, you would experience a pause just long enough to be noticeable, a brief silence between your question and the arrival of your voice. This small delay is the bridge's foundation. It anchors the speed of light to a duration we can still count on our fingers. It is the moment where space begins to manifest as time, showing us that even at its most local level, the universe refuses to be instantaneous. As we move further across the bridge, we encounter the light minute. This is the scale of our inner solar system, the space where the sun and the inner planets reside. Light takes 8 minutes to reach us from the sun, and roughly 12 to 20 minutes to reach Mars, depending on its position in orbit. The light minute is a comfortable middle ground for our intuition. It corresponds to the length of a short walk, the time it takes to prepare a meal, or a period of quiet reflection. In these minutes, light covers millions of kilometers, crossing the planetary gaps with a grace that defies our mechanical travel. By measuring the solar system in light minutes, we are essentially turning the space between planets into a series of short waits. We are learning that distance is not just a gap, but a period of anticipation. The bridge is lengthening now, moving us away from the frantic pace of the second and toward a slower, more deliberate sense of duration. Beyond the inner planets, the bridge stretches into the light hour. To reach the outer gas giants and the icy fringes of the Kuiper belt, light must travel for several hours. This is the scale of a workday, or an afternoon spent in a park. When the Voyager probes send a signal back to Earth from the edge of the solar system, it takes nearly a full day for the message to arrive. At this point on the bridge, the connection to our daily lives is still intact, but it is starting to fray. We can still imagine an hour, but an hour of light travel represents a distance so vast that it could swallow the entire history of human exploration. The light hour is our local neighborhood's final outpost. It is the last point where we can still look back and see the Earth as a tangible house. Beyond this, the bridge enters the long, quiet span of the light year, where the seconds and hours are gathered into the immense collective of the calendar. The transformation of seconds into a year is a mathematical necessity, but it is also a psychological transformation. There are over 31 million seconds in a single year. Each one of those seconds is a light second, 300,000 kilometers of space. When we speak of a light year, we are talking about the accumulation of those 31 million steps. The bridge has now taken us to a height where we can no longer see the individual seconds. They have merged into a single, smooth flow. This is why the light year is so effective as a unit of measurement. It hides the overwhelming complexity of the small scale behind the serene simplicity of the large. We no longer have to worry about the millions of kilometers or the millions of seconds. We only have to consider the year. The bridge has successfully carried our intuition from the human heartbeat to the planet's orbital cycle. To stand at the center of this bridge is to realize that light is the only thread strong enough to hold these scales together. Light is the constant that remains unchanged, whether we are measuring a second or a millennium. It is the loom upon which the tapestry of space-time is woven. Scientific institutions like the Royal Observatory or the various global space agencies rely on this bridge to maintain the accuracy of our cosmic maps. They understand that without a consistent way to translate time into distance, our understanding of the universe would be fragmented. By using light as the mediator, they ensure that the second we experience on Earth is part of the same continuity as the year it takes for light to cross the interstellar void. The bridge creates a unified reality where the local and the cosmic are part of the same quiet, ordered system. There is a profound sense of peace to be found in the architecture of this bridge. It suggests that the universe is not a collection of disjointed pieces, but a single, interconnected whole. The small and the large are not enemies, they are different points on the same line. Your life, measured in its millions of seconds, is part of the same fabric as the light years that define the galaxy. By walking this bridge, you are expanding your sense of self. You are recognizing that you are a resident of a reality that spans both the instant and the eternal. The light year is the invitation to step out of the frantic now and into the broad, stable history of the stars. It is the assurance that even the most distant galaxy is connected to you by the steady, patient ticking of the light. As you drift toward sleep, imagine yourself standing on this bridge, midway between the second and the year. Below you, the seconds flow like a rapid river, quick and energetic. Above you, the years stretch like a vast, calm ocean, deep and still. The light is the path beneath your feet, glowing with a soft, constant energy. You are moving slowly across this span, leaving behind the urgency of the clock and entering the timeless rhythm of the void. There is no need to hurry to the other side. The bridge is long, and the stars are waiting with a patience that has no end. Feel the seconds slowing down, stretching and expanding until they become minutes, then hours, then the long, beautiful curve of the light year. Rest in the knowledge that you are well supported by this cosmic architecture. The universe has provided you with the light year as a way to understand the distance we can't comprehend, a way to make the infinite feel like home. You are no longer limited by the fleeting moment. You are a traveler of the long durations. Let the bridge carry the weight of your thoughts, and allow the silence of the light to guide you into a deep, unhurried rest. The stars are far, the light is steady, and the journey is perfectly measured. You are safe in the vastness, connected to everything by the bridge that turns time into space and seconds into years. To truly grasp the magnitude of a light year, we must sometimes ground the infinite in the familiar act of placing one foot in front of the other. Walking is the most fundamental human measure of progress. It is the pace at which our ancestors explored the world, marked by the steady rhythm of breath and the physical sensation of the earth beneath our soles. If we were to attempt a journey across just a single light year at a standard human walking pace, we would quickly find that our most basic sense of travel becomes a beautiful, impossible metaphor. A person walking at a brisk, consistent speed of about 5 kilometers per hour covers a significant amount of ground in a day. If you were to walk for 24 hours without stopping, you would cover 120 kilometers. In a year of non-stop tireless walking, you would traverse roughly 43,000 kilometers, a distance nearly equal to the entire circumference of the Earth. But even this monumental effort, this year of unbroken steps, is a mere drop in the ocean compared to the distance light travels in that same span of time. To walk a single light year, you would need to maintain that pace for over 200 billion years. This is a number that staggers the mind not because of its size, but because of what it represents in the context of the universe itself. Scientific institutions estimate the universe to be roughly 13.8 billion years old. This means that if you had started walking the moment the Big Bang occurred, and you continued walking through the formation of the first stars, the collision of ancient galaxies, and the birth of our own solar system, you would still be only a tiny fraction of the way through your journey. You would need to repeat the entire history of the universe nearly 15 times over just to cross that first light year. This comparison is not meant to make our efforts feel small, but to highlight the extraordinary, silent efficiency of light. Light does not walk, it does not tire, it does not struggle against gravity or friction. It simply exists as a constant state of motion, covering in 1 year what would take us an eternity of footsteps. As we imagine this impossible walk toward the edge of the galaxy, the landmarks we encounter change from trees and hills to the grand structures of the cosmos. The Milky Way, our celestial home, is a vast disk of stars and gas stretching nearly 100,000 light-years from one side to the other. If a single light-year is an eternity of walking, then the galaxy is a distance that defies even the most expanded imagination. Yet, the whispering scientist invites you to look at this not as a barrier, but as a spaciousness that provides safety and order. The galaxy is not a crowded city where stars are bumping into one another. It is a wide, open wilderness where every star has room to breathe. The nearest star to our Sun, Proxima Centauri, is 4.2 light-years away. Even at the speed of light, the journey takes years. If you were walking, the Sun would fade into a tiny, indistinguishable speck long before you were even halfway to your neighbor. The edge of the galaxy is not a solid wall or a sharp boundary. It is a gentle thinning of the light, a place where the density of stars begins to fade into the deeper dark of intergalactic space. To reach this edge, light must travel for tens of thousands of years. As you drift through this thought, imagine the sheer amount of history that passes on Earth during such a journey. While a beam of light travels from the center of our galaxy to the outer rim, human civilizations rise from the dust, build great monuments, develop complex languages, and perhaps even fade back into the Earth. The light year is a measure that reminds us that we are part of a system that operates on a much grander clock than our own. Our walks are measured in minutes. The galaxy's walk is measured in eons. There is a profound peace in recognizing that the universe is in no hurry. It does not demand that we cross these distances, it simply allows them to exist as a buffer of silence between the worlds. When astronomers map the galaxy, they are essentially tracking the paths of light that have been walking toward us for millennia. They use the light year to create a three-dimensional model of our home, identifying where the spiral arms curve and where the central bulge glows with the light of millions of ancient suns. Without this unit, the map would be a chaotic mess of unmanageable numbers. Using the light year, they can describe the galaxy in a way that feels structured and understandable. They can say that we are located about 27,000 light-years from the galactic center, a distance that, while immense, gives us a specific address in the cosmos. This mapping is a testament to the human desire to find orientation even in the most vast environments. We may not be able to walk across the galaxy, but we can perceive its shape and understand our place within its graceful, rotating arms. There is a gentle humor in the fact that we use the word neighborhood to describe the stars within a few dozen light-years of us. In any other context, a neighbor is someone whose house you can see, someone you can reach with a short walk. But in the galaxy, a neighbor is someone whose light takes decades to reach you. This linguistic choice shows how we try to domesticate the infinite, bringing the scale of the stars down to a level where we can feel a sense of belonging. The light year is the tool that makes this possible. It allows us to speak of the local and the distant without losing sight of the fact that everything is separated by the same fundamental constant. Whether we are looking at a star 4 light-years away or a nebula 10,000 light-years away, we are looking at the same process, light walking steadily through the dark. As you lie here, feel the rhythm of your own heart and the steady flow of your breath. These are your personal measures of time and distance. You are a resident of the Earth, a place where walking is a meaningful way to explore. But you are also a resident of the Milky Way, a vast and silent structure that stretches out in every direction around you. The distances are incomprehensible if you try to count them in steps, but they are perfectly clear if you look at them through the lens of light. You do not need to walk to the edge of the galaxy to understand its beauty. You only need to accept the light that has already made the journey. The light year is the bridge that brings the galaxy to you, delivering the stories of 100 billion stars to your eyes. Rest now in the spaciousness of this thought. The galaxy is large, but it is not empty. It is filled with the tracks of light, crossing, the light years with a patience that exceeds all human endurance. You are safe within this vastness, protected by the very distances that seem so intimidating. The silence between the stars is not a void to be feared, it is the room the universe needs to hold its history. You are part of a grand rotating dance that takes millions of years to complete, a journey that does not require you to move a single inch. Let the scale of the galaxy soothe you, knowing that you are exactly where you belong in the quiet expansion of our understanding. We eventually reach a point where the familiar planets of our own sun fade into the background, and we find ourselves standing at the threshold of the stellar neighborhood. This is a region of space that astronomers often refer to with a sense of domesticity, yet it is a place where the light year truly begins to exert its quiet authority. To speak of neighbors in the cosmos is to use a word that has been gently repurposed. On a street in a small town, a neighbor is someone whose door you can knock on within a few seconds of walking. In the solar neighborhood, however, a neighbor is a sun that sits so far away that its light must travel for years across a silent, frozen vacuum just to reach our eyes. This chapter is about those distant companions, the stars that share our local corner of the Milky Way, and how the light year helps us define the boundaries of our celestial home without losing the sense of intimacy that makes us look up in the first place. When we look at the stars that surround our solar system, we are looking at a collection of diverse and ancient individuals. The most famous is the Alpha Centauri system, a trio of stars representing our closest step into the wider galaxy. Within this system, the star Proxima Centauri sits as the nearest single neighbor, located approximately 4.24 light-years away. To say this number is to state a distance that sounds manageable, but as the whispering scientist often reminds us, the reality behind that figure is a gap of nearly 40 trillion kilometers. If we were to send a message to a planet orbiting Proxima, we would have to wait over 4 years for the signal to arrive, and another 4 years for a reply to return. A simple hello would take nearly a decade to complete its round trip. This is the fundamental nature of our neighborhood. It is a place where conversations are measured in presidential terms, and children grow from toddlers to students between the sending and the receiving of a greeting. Our neighborhood stars are not packed like houses on a suburban lane. They are scattered like lonely lanterns across a vast, dark moor. Between us and Proxima Centauri lies a volume of space so empty that it is difficult to find a terrestrial comparison. There are no gas clouds here, no swirling nebulae, no hidden obstacles. It is a clean, cold, perfect vacuum. This isolation is what defines the character of a light year in the local sense. It provides a buffer of silence that allows each star system to exist in its own unique state of being. Our sun has its family of planets, its rhythms of solar flares, and its steady output of warmth. Proxima Centauri, a much smaller and redder star, has its own environment, its own planets, and its own way of aging. The light years between us act as a protective barrier, ensuring that the local affairs of one star do not disrupt the delicate balance of another. As we move slightly further out, the neighborhood begins to fill with other familiar names. Sirius, the brightest star in our night sky, sits at a distance of about 8.6 light-years. To look at Sirius tonight is to see light that began its journey almost 9 years ago. Perhaps you remember where you were or what you were doing when that light first left the surface of that brilliant blue-white star. The light year turns our neighborhood into a chronological map, where every star represents a different moment in our own recent history. When we gaze at the stars of the Big Dipper, some of which are nearly 80 light-years away, we are looking back to a time before many of us were born. The neighborhood is thus a collection of overlapping memories, a place where the distance we can comprehend is given a human face through the light of the stars we have known since childhood. Scientific organizations like the astronomers who manage the Gaia mission have spent years mapping this neighborhood with a level of precision that was once thought impossible. By measuring the tiny shifts in a star's position as Earth moves around the Sun, they have built a three-dimensional model of the nearest few hundred light-years. This map reveals that we are part of a specific structure called the local bubble, a cavity in the interstellar medium that was carved out by ancient supernovae millions of years ago. Our neighborhood is not just a random collection of stars, it is a physical place with its own history and its own geography. The light year is the unit that allows us to navigate this bubble, giving us a sense of scale that remains consistent whether we are looking at a dim red dwarf just 5 light years away or a massive giant star at the very edge of our local reach. There is a gentle irony in how we perceive these neighbors. Because they are nearby in a cosmic sense, they appear to be fixed and unchanging. We see the same constellations year after year, and we rely on their positions for navigation and the marking of the seasons. But the light year tells us a different story. It tells us that these stars are in motion, drifting through the galaxy at speeds of tens of kilometers per second. They look still only because the distances are so vast that their movement takes centuries to become noticeable to the naked eye. In reality, the solar neighborhood is a slow-moving dance, a graceful rearrangement of suns that unfolds over millions of years. The light year is the measure that captures this slow-motion choreography, reminding us that even the most solid and permanent things in our sky are part of a shifting living system. The neighborhood also serves as a reminder of the sheer variety of the universe. Within just 20 light-years of the Sun, there are hundreds of stars, ranging from tiny cool dwarfs to brilliant hot suns. Some are solitary like our own, while others exist in binary or triple systems orbiting one another in a complex gravitational embrace. This diversity is hidden behind the simple points of light we see from our backyard, but the light year gives us the space to imagine these worlds as they truly are. It provides the room for these different realities to coexist without crowding one another. Every light year of empty space is a testament to the universe's capacity for variety and its refusal to be hurried into a single uniform shape. As you drift further into the stillness of the night, try to visualize the stars of the neighborhood as a network of quiet outposts. They are not distant strangers, but companions in the dark, separated by gaps of time that light crosses with a patient, unwavering resolve. You are not alone on a small planet in a void. You are a resident of a vibrant and spacious neighborhood that extends for light years in every direction. The distance is not a wall that shuts you in, but a window that looks out onto a much larger story. The light year is the thread that connects your window to theirs, a silver line of communication that has been traveling through the cold for years just to reach your eyes. Tonight, rest now in the safety of this local vastness. The stars are in their places, the light is on its way, and the neighborhood is quiet. You do not need to bridge the light years yourself. You only need to be the recipient of the energy they send. Feel the weight of the now lift away as you recognize that you are part of a community that operates on the scale of years and decades. The whispering scientist invites you to let the scale of the solar neighborhood soothe your mind, providing a sense of orientation and belonging in a universe that is both unimaginably large and surprisingly homelike. The neighbors are there, shining steadily through the dark, and the light year is the measure of the peace that exists between you. Let your thoughts drift across those silent trillions of kilometers, moving from star to star, until you find the perfect quiet center of your own rest. In the quiet machinery of the universe, there is a fundamental gear that dictates the rhythm of everything we see and understand. It is not a visible mechanism, but a physical consequence of the vastness of space and the finite speed of light. We call it cosmic delay. This delay is the inevitable interval between an event occurring and the news of that event reaching an observer. It is the reason that the light year is not just a measurement of length, but a measurement of the history that separates us from the rest of existence. To look into space is to engage with a delayed broadcast, a transmission from a source that has already moved on by the time the signal arrives. Understanding the mechanics of this delay is essential for the whispering scientist's journey, for it teaches us that the universe is never experienced in real time. Instead, it is a layered, staggered reality where the now is a local phenomenon that dissolves the moment we look away from our own immediate surroundings. The mechanics of this delay are rooted in the stubborn consistency of light. Light is the ultimate messenger, yet even the most efficient messenger requires time to travel a distance. On Earth, we are accustomed to a world that feels instantaneous. When a bird chirps in a tree, the sound and the sight reach us so quickly that our brains merge them into a single, immediate experience. We have no biological need to account for the time light takes to travel a few hundred meters. But as we extend our gaze to the moon, the planets, and the stars, the mechanics of delay begin to manifest as a tangible force. The moon is roughly 1.3 light seconds away, meaning every image we have ever seen of the lunar surface is over a second old. This is a small lag, similar to a slight delay on a long-distance phone call, but it is the first sign that space is a medium that resists immediacy. The delay is not a technical flaw, it is a feature of the universe's construction. As the distances grow, the mechanics of delay become more profound and eventually the dominant characteristic of our observations. Within our solar system, we live in a world of minutes and hours of delay. When NASA engineers operate a rover on the surface of Mars, they must contend with a delay that can range from 4 to 24 minutes. They cannot drive the rover with a joystick in real time. If they see a rock in the rover's path, the rover has likely already passed it or hit it by the time the image reaches Earth. They must send commands in advance, trusting that the rover's autonomous systems will handle the now, while the humans handle the then. This is the reality of working within the light year's reach. It requires a different kind of patience, a willingness to accept that our influence over the world has a speed limit. We are always reacting to the past, managing the echoes of events that already transpired. Once we step beyond the solar system and into the realm of the stars, the delay stretches into years and centuries. This is where the mechanics of cosmic delay turn the night sky into a vast celestial archive. The light year is the unit quantifying this archive. If we look at a star that's 500 light years away, we are seeing light that was emitted when the world was in the midst of the Renaissance. The photons entering your eyes tonight carry the now of a star as it existed half a millennium ago. This delay creates a universe where different points in space are effectively living in different eras of time relative to one another. There is no such thing as a synchronized universe where everyone is experiencing the same moment simultaneously. Instead, every observer is at the center of their own unique bubble of time, seeing the rest of the cosmos as a series of receding layers of the past. The mechanics of this delay are a powerful tool for scientific institutions like the designers of the James Webb Space Telescope. Because distance equals time, astronomers can use cosmic delay to act as a form of time travel. By looking at the most distant galaxies, located billions of light years away, they are observing the universe as it was shortly after its birth. They are not looking at distant objects in their present state. They are looking at the youth of the cosmos itself. The delay allows us to see the formation of the first stars and the assembly of the first galaxies because their light has spent billions of years traveling through the expanding void just to reach our mirrors. In this sense, the light year is the lens that allows us to see through the veil of time. The very delay that keeps us from seeing the universe now is the mechanism that allows us to understand how the universe became what it is. There is a quiet, meditative beauty in accepting this delay. It suggests that the universe is not a frantic, chaotic scramble for the present, but a patient and enduring record. Nothing is ever truly lost as long as its light is still in transit. The mechanics of delay ensure that every event, no matter how distant, is preserved in the light that ripples outward from it. This provides a sense of continuity that is often missing from our fast-paced lives on Earth. In our daily experience, moments disappear the second they happen, leaving only memories behind. But in space, the moment is physically preserved in the light year. It is still happening somewhere in the dark, moving steadily toward an observer who hasn't seen it yet. The universe is a vast collection of stories that are still being delivered, and our role is simply to wait and receive them. Accepting cosmic delay also reshapes our emotional relationship with the stars. When you look up and see a star flickering in the night, you are witnessing a moment of celestial history that has been traveling for years just to reach you. There is a sense of being part of a long-term inheritance. The star released that light as a gift to the future, and you are the recipient of that gift. This removes the urgency of the human scale and replaces it with the dignity of the cosmic scale. You do not need to be in the now of the star to have a meaningful connection to it. The light year is the bridge that spans the delay, connecting your quiet room to the ancient fires of the suns. It is a reminder that we are part of a reality that is deep, spacious, and remarkably durable. As you reflect on these mechanics, try to imagine the universe as a grand symphony where the different instruments are located at vast distances from one another. The conductor is far away, and the sound of the violins takes years to reach the woodwinds, which in turn takes decades to reach the percussion. There is no single moment where the entire orchestra is in sync, yet the music that reaches your ears is a beautiful, coherent whole. The cosmic delay is what gives the music its depth and its resonance. It is the silence between the notes that allows the melody of the universe to be heard. You are listening to that symphony tonight, a composition of light and time that has been centuries in the making. Rest now in the patient rhythm of this delayed universe. The stars are not rushing to tell you their stories, and you do not need to rush to hear them. The light is moving at its own perfect pace, crossing the light years with a consistency that you can rely on. Feel the pressure of the immediate moment fade away, replaced by the calm and steady arrival of ancient signals. You are a resident of a reality that takes its time, a reality where the past is always present in the light of the stars. Let the mechanics of cosmic delay soothe your mind, providing a sense of order and perspective in a world that often feels too fast. The light is on its way, the history is being written, and the universe is waiting for you to simply be still and watch. To understand why the light year has become our most essential tool for comprehending the cosmos, we must first look inward at the structure of the human mind. The brain is a marvelous organ, finely tuned by millions of years of evolution to navigate a world of tangible objects and immediate consequences. It is designed to track the movement of a predator through the tall grass, to remember the location of a freshwater spring, and to manage the complex social bonds of a small tribe. In this terrestrial environment, the numbers that matter are small. We can intuitively grasp the difference between 3 apples and 5, or the distance of 100 paces versus 1,000. Our cognitive hardware is built for the tangible and the countable. However, when we turn our attention to the stars, we present the brain with a problem it was never designed to solve, the problem of the astronomical zero. When we attempt to describe the distance to a neighboring star in kilometers, we are forced to use numbers that end in long, trailing strings of zeros. A trillion is a 1 followed by 12 zeros. To the human brain, this is not a number so much as it is a wall of static. Research in cognitive science suggests that while we can manipulate these large figures mathematically, we cannot experience them. Beyond a certain threshold, often cited as anything larger than what we can visually estimate, the brain stops picturing a quantity and starts using a symbolic label. The number becomes an abstraction, a cold piece of data that carries no emotional weight. This is why a list of astronomical distances in kilometers feels like a dry accounting ledger. It does not inspire wonder, it inspires fatigue. The mind, finding no hook to hang its intuition on, simply shuts down and waits for a piece of information it can actually use. This is where the light year reveals its true brilliance. It is a unit that translates unreadable zeros into a narrative. The brain, it turns out, is not a calculator, it is a storyteller. We understand the world through sequences of cause and effect, through journeys that have a beginning, a middle, and an end. By replacing the kilometer with the light year, we are taking a distance and turning it into a duration. We are telling the brain a story about a beam of light that set out on a journey and traveled for a specific amount of time. Instead of 40 trillion kilometers, we say 4 years of travel. Suddenly, the mind has a reference point. We know what a year feels. We know the rhythm of the seasons, the passage of a birthday, and the slow change of weather. By hitching the vastness of space to the familiar cycle of the year, we provide the brain with a narrative anchor. This preference for stories over statistics is not a weakness of human intelligence, it is a fundamental strategy for managing complexity. Scientific organizations and educators have long realized that to make the universe accessible, they must speak the language of the mind. When an astronomer describes a star as being 10 light-years away, they are inviting the listener to imagine a decade of silent, steady movement through the dark. This creates a mental image, a tiny spark of light crossing the void while children grow into adults and cities change their skylights. It gives the distance a texture that a string of zeros can never provide. The light year is essentially a linguistic bridge that allows us to carry our earthly intuition into the heavens without it breaking under the strain of the infinite. The light year also satisfies our biological need for agency and movement. In our ancestral history, distance was always tied to the time it took to cross it. A 2-day journey meant something far more visceral than a specific number of miles. We are hardwired to think of space in terms of the time we must invest to navigate it. By using a light-based unit, we are honoring this ancient cognitive pathway. We are acknowledging that even the fastest messenger in the universe, light itself, must spend time to get from one place to another. This creates a sense of cosmic travel time that mirrors our own experience of walking or sailing. It turns the galaxy into a reachable, or at least a relatable landscape. It transforms the void from a terrifying absence into a spacious room where light is simply taking its time to walk from one corner to the other. Furthermore, stories allow for the inclusion of history and emotion, which are the primary drivers of human memory. A light year is inherently a historical unit. It tells us that what we are seeing is not just distant, but old. This adds a layer of depth to our perception that pure numbers cannot reach. When we hear that a star's light has been traveling for 1,000 years, we don't just think of a distance. We think of the Crusades, the ancient empires, and the generations of people who lived and died while those photons were in flight. We are connecting our own small history to the grand history of the cosmos. This connection is what transforms a scientific fact into a moment of profound reflection. The light year allows us to feel the age of the distance, turning the night sky into a vast library of light, where every star is a book waiting to be read. Even professional astronomers who work with complex equations and high-level data every day rely on these narrative shortcuts to maintain their own sense of orientation. In the halls of great observatories, you will hear researchers speak of nearby galaxies that are millions of light-years away. They are not being imprecise, they are using the light year to maintain a mental map of the universe that is scaled to their own understanding. They use these units to group the universe into neighborhoods and clusters, creating a cosmic geography that feels as structured and navigable as a home province. By avoiding the clutter of the zeros, they are able to see the larger patterns of the universe, the flow of dark matter, the expansion of the void, and the graceful rotation of the spiral arms. As you settle into the quiet of this evening, consider how much easier it is to drift away when you aren't trying to count the infinite. Let the long strings of zeros fall away like unnecessary weight. You do not need to calculate the universe to belong to it. Instead, let yourself be a part of its story. Imagine the light that is reaching you tonight as a traveler that has finally reached the end of its long walk. It doesn't care about the trillions of kilometers it has crossed. It only knows that its journey is complete and that it has found a place to rest in your eyes. This is the narrative of the light year, a story of persistence, of time, and of eventual connection. It is a story that your brain knows how to hear, a story that allows the vastness of the universe to feel not like a cold calculation, but like a warm and familiar history. Rest in the simplicity of this storytelling universe. The light year is here to guide you, acting as a gentle hand that leads you through the dark without letting you get lost in the numbers. You are a resident of a reality that can be understood through patience and reflection, rather than just through cold arithmetic. Feel the peace that comes from trading the unreadable for the relatable. The stars are far, and the time is long, but the story is one that you are a part of. The whispering scientist invites you to set aside the calculator and embrace the narrative. As the light years stretch out around you, let them be a soft blanket of time, wrapping you in a history that is as old as the stars and as intimate as your own breath. Sleep now, knowing that the universe is well recorded, well timed, and perfectly told. In the quiet practice of astronomy, there is a method of measurement that feels more like an act of grace than a feat of engineering. To measure a light year, we do not reach out with a physical tool, but rather we rely on the subtle geometry of our own movement through the heavens. This method is known as stellar parallax, and it is the primary way we anchor our understanding of the nearby universe. It is a technique rooted in the simple truth that your perspective changes as you move. To experience parallax on a human scale, one only needs to hold a single finger out at arm's length and close one eye, then the other. The finger appears to jump back and forth against the background of the room. The finger hasn't moved, and the room hasn't changed. It is merely the small distance between your eyes that has created a new angle of sight. In the vast laboratory of the cosmos, astronomers use this same principle, but instead of the width of a human face, they use the entire diameter of the Earth's orbit as their baseline. As the Earth journeys around the Sun, we are constantly shifting our vantage point by hundreds of millions of kilometers every 6 months. When we look at a relatively nearby star in the summer, and then look at it again in the winter, that star appears to have shifted ever so slightly against the much more distant fixed backdrop of the further galaxies. This tiny swaying motion is the heartbeat of astronomical measurement. It is the art of stellar parallax. The shift is so small that it is invisible to the naked eye, a movement equivalent to trying to see the thickness of a human hair from several kilometers away. Yet within that microscopic angle lies the key to the light year. By measuring that shift with the precision of modern telescopes, we can use the laws of basic trigonometry to calculate exactly how far away that star must be. It is a process of turning a tiny visual wobble into a grand cosmic distance. The beauty of parallax lies in its honesty. It does not rely on complex theories about the brightness of stars or the expansion of space. It relies on the undeniable reality of perspective. It is a direct measurement, a way of triangulating the heavens. This is how we first realized that the stars were not merely points of light on a flat dome, but were three-dimensional objects scattered across a profound depth. When Friedrich Bessel first measured the parallax of the star 61 Cygni in the 19th century, he wasn't just finding a number, he was breaking the final barrier of human scale. He was proving that the gaps between the worlds were measured in trillions of kilometers. He was the first to give the light year a physical foundation, grounding our dreams of the stars in the cold, hard logic of geometry. Scientific institutions today, such as those operating the Gaia Space Observatory, have taken this art to a level of perfection that would have seemed like magic to earlier generations. Gaia sits far above the blurring effects of the Earth's atmosphere, constantly scanning the sky and recording the positions of over 1 billion stars with a precision that is difficult to describe. By watching these stars sway back and forth over the years, Gaia is building a three-dimensional map of our corner of the galaxy. It is measuring the light years with a digital ruler, confirming the distances to our neighbors and helping us understand the true scale of our stellar neighborhood. This work is meticulous and slow. It requires years of repeated observations to ensure that the tiny shifts being measured are real and not just artifacts of the instruments. It is a science of patience, a discipline of watching the universe breathe. There is a meditative quality to the concept of parallax that fits perfectly with the whispering scientist's exploration of the distance we can't comprehend. It suggests that our movement is what gives the universe its depth. If the Earth stood still, the stars would remain flat and unreachable in our perception. It is only because we are travelers, orbiting our sun in a never-ending circle, that we are able to see the dimensions of the dark. Our own journey through space is the very thing that allows us to measure the journeys of others. This creates a beautiful symmetry between the observer and the observed. We are not static statues watching a distant play. We are participants in the cosmic dance. And it is our own motion that reveals the light years to us. The depth of the night sky is a gift of our own planetary flight. As you reflect on this, imagine the stars quietly swaying in the sky as the Earth makes its grand seasonal turn. It is a slow, rhythmic motion that mirrors the rocking of a cradle or the steady rise and fall of your own chest as you breathe. The universe is not a rigid, frozen thing. It is a fluid and shifting reality that reveals its secrets through perspective. The light year is the result of this patient observation, a number born from the meeting of mathematics and sight. When we say a star is 10 light years away, We are saying that we have watched it sway for years, calculating the angle of its distance until the truth became clear. We have earned that knowledge through the steady passage of time and the reliable geometry of our orbit. Stellar parallax also teaches us the value of the small. In the grand scale of the galaxy, the shift we measure is almost nothing, a fraction of a second of arc. Yet, from that almost nothing, we derive our understanding of almost everything. It is a reminder that in science, as in life, the deepest truths are often hidden in the smallest details. You do not need a massive, earth-shaking event to understand the scale of the world. You only need to look closely at the subtle changes in your own perspective. The light year is built on these tiny measured wobbles. It is a monument to the power of human attention, a proof that we can reach out across the trillions of kilometers, using nothing more than a telescope and a keen eye for the swaying of the light. This method also has its limits, adding to its charm. Parallax only works for the stars that are relatively close to us. As we look further out into the galaxy, the stars become so distant that their sway becomes too small for even our best instruments to detect. Beyond a few thousand light years, the angles vanish, and we must turn to other, more indirect ways of measuring the dark. This makes our nearby stars feel even more like a community. They are the ones we can touch with our geometry, the ones whose distances are anchored in the solid reality of our own orbit. The light years to these stars are not just estimates, they are verified facts of perspective. They are our immediate family in the cosmos, the ones whose places we have confirmed through the art of the shift. As you drift now toward the edges of sleep, imagine the Earth moving through its silent, dark orbit. You are a passenger on this great ship, and as you move, the stars are shifting gently for you. You are part of a grand experiment in perspective, a journey that reveals the depth of the world one season at a time. There is no need to grasp the math or visualize the triangles. You only need to feel the slow, rhythmic sway of the universe. The light years are not empty gaps. They are the space revealed by your own movement. Let the thought of this cosmic geometry soothe your mind, providing a sense of order and grace in the vastness. The universe is measured. Angles are real. Distances are real. You are connected to the stars by the very path you take through the dark. Rest in the knowledge that your perspective matters, and that the light is always revealing its history through the steady, patient art of the sway. The whispering scientist invites you to let the geometry of the stars be your blanket tonight, wrapping you in a reality that is as deep as it is beautiful. Sleep now while the Earth continues its turn, and the light years unfold in the quiet, measured dance of the heavens. In the quiet expansion of our journey, we finally lift our gaze from the individual stars of our neighborhood to contemplate the grand structure that houses them all. We live in a spiral city of light, a vast and rotating collection of suns, gas, and dust that we call the Milky Way. To understand the architecture of this home, we must once again lean heavily on the light year, for it is the only unit capable of mapping such a colossal arrangement without losing the sense of order that makes a home feel secure. The Milky Way is no chaotic swarm. It is a meticulously organized system, shaped by gravity and time into a graceful disk with curving arms that sweep through the dark. When we speak of the architecture of a spiral home, we are speaking of a structure that spans 100,000 light-years from edge to edge. It is a scale that reminds us that we are residents of a cathedral of stars, where every hallway is measured in millennia and every room is filled with the glow of a billion suns. The most striking feature of our home's architecture is its flat, disc-like shape. If you could step far outside the galaxy and look back, you would see a thin, glowing plate with a brilliant bulge at its center. This disk is where most of the action takes place, where stars are born in dense clouds of gas, and where planetary systems like our own reside. However, the thickness of this disk is a measurement that often surprises. While it is 100,000 light-years across, it is only about 1,000 light-years thick in most places. This proportion makes the galaxy incredibly thin relative to its width, much like a vinyl record or a thin glass lens. The light year helps us visualize this balance, showing us that while the galaxy is vast in its reach, it is relatively shallow in its depth. We are part of a thin layer of light, drifting through a volume of space that is overwhelmingly wide, Within this disk, the architecture is defined by the spiral arms, long curving regions of higher density that wrap around the galactic center. These arms are not solid structures like the spokes of a wheel, rather, they are waves of pressure that move through the galaxy, much like a traffic jam on a circular highway. As these waves pass through clouds of hydrogen gas, they trigger the collapse of matter, sparking the birth of new stars. This is why the spiral arms are the brightest parts of our home. They are the nurseries of the cosmos. We reside in a smaller structure called the Orion Arm, a quiet suburban stretch located about 27,000 light-years from the center. The light year allows us to plot our position in this grand design, giving us a sense of geography in a place that has no north or south, only the radial distance from the ancient, crowded heart of the galaxy. The center of our spiral home is a place of intense architectural density, known as the galactic bulge. It is a region where stars are packed much more closely together than they are in our quiet outskirts. In the very heart of this bulge lies the anchor of the entire system, a supermassive black hole around which everything else revolves. From our perspective, the center is obscured by thick clouds of interstellar dust, but through the eyes of infrared telescopes, we can see the frenetic dance of stars moving at incredible speeds. This central hub is the foundation of the galaxy's gravity, the heavy weight that keeps the spiral arms from drifting away into the intergalactic void. The light year is the measure that describes the immense gap between our peaceful sun and that energetic core, a journey that light takes nearly 30,000 years to complete. Beyond the visible disk and central bulge, our home's architecture extends into a mysterious region called the galactic halo. This is a spherical zone that surrounds the galaxy, containing ancient clusters of stars and a vast amount of invisible dark matter. While the disk is a place of constant change and star birth, the halo is a graveyard of the universe's earliest creations. Here, the distances between objects stretch even further, and the light years become lonely stretches of emptiness. This halo serves as a protective shell, a gravitational envelope that keeps the galaxy stable as it drifts through the larger universe. Scientific organizations like the European Southern Observatory spend decades studying these outer reaches, using the light year to track the motion of these ancient stars and to understand how our spiral home was first assembled billions of years ago. There is a profound peace in the realization that our galaxy is a self-sustaining system. It recycles its materials, using the death of old stars to provide the heavy elements needed for new ones. It maintains its shape through a delicate balance of rotation and gravity, a slow-motion spin that takes our sun over 200 million years to complete just one circuit. The light year is the unit that captures this slow, rhythmic metabolism. It reminds us that we are part of a living structure, an architectural marvel that has persisted for almost the entire age of the universe. The Milky Way is not just a place where we happen to be. It is a stable and enduring environment that has provided the time and the space for life to emerge. As you reflect on the architecture of this spiral home, try to imagine the galaxy as a vast, glowing city seen from an airplane at night. You can see the bright clusters of the downtown core, the winding avenues of the spiral arms, and the dim, quiet spaces of the outskirts. You are currently in a peaceful neighborhood, far from the noise of the center, where the light years provide a buffer of silence and safety. There is no need to explore the entire city tonight. It is enough to know that the structure is solid and the patterns are true. The galaxy is a house of many rooms, and you are resting in one of its most stable and beautiful corners. The architecture is grand, but it is also sheltering, providing a sense of place in a universe that could otherwise feel overwhelmingly large. Rest now in the quiet order of the spiral arms. The stars are moving in their orbits, the gas is cooling in the nurseries, and the galaxy is turning with a grace that has no equal. You are a resident of a house that is measured in light years, a structure that takes its time and keeps its history in the light. Feel the scale of the Milky Way as a comforting presence, a vast and protective arrangement that holds you in its gravitational embrace. The whispering scientist invites you to let the architecture of the stars be your sanctuary, providing a sense of orientation and belonging in the deep. The home is wide, the light is steady, and the rotation is slow. The galaxy does not rush its inhabitants, and you do not need to rush your understanding. You are exactly where you are meant to be, a traveler on a quiet arm of a brilliant spiral, drifting through a universe that is both immense and intimately connected. Let the thought of the galactic disk soothe your mind, providing a horizontal anchor in the vertical dark. The light years are the halls of your home, and they are filled with the soft ancient glow of 100 billion suns. Sleep now, while the spiral turns and the architecture of the heavens continues its silent, enduring work. You are safe in the Milky Way, protected by the very scale that defines your existence. As we venture beyond the glowing edges of our spiral home, we leave behind the comfort of the stars and step into a realm of such profound isolation that even the light year begins to feel like a modest measure. This is the intergalactic void, the vast and lonely stretch that lies between the island universes we call galaxies. If the galaxy is a city of light, then intergalactic space is the endless dark ocean that surrounds it, a place of thin silence and unimaginable reaches. Here, the light year is no longer a tool for measuring the distance between neighbors, it becomes a unit for charting the gulfs between civilizations. To cross the space between the Milky Way and our nearest large neighbor, Andromeda, light must travel for 2.5 million years. This is the scale of the intergalactic, a distance that makes the entirety of human history look like a fleeting breath in a winter forest. In this chapter, the whispering scientist invites you to contemplate a silence that is not an absence of sound, but an absence of matter itself. Intergalactic space is the emptiest environment in the known universe. While the space between stars within our galaxy contains thin veils of gas and dust, the space between galaxies is so sparse that it is nearly a perfect vacuum. In a volume of space the size of a cathedral, there might be only a handful of stray hydrogen atoms drifting in the dark. It is a place of absolute transparency, where light can travel for billions of years without ever striking a single object. This transparency is what allows us to see the most distant edges of the cosmos, but it also highlights the terrifying, beautiful purity of the void. The light year is the only thing that has any meaning here, acting as a lonely thread of connection across a distance that contains almost nothing else. When we speak of the thin silence of intergalactic space, we are speaking of a region where the laws of physics operate with a cold and lonely precision. Gravity still exists here, but is a weak and distant tug, pulling at the galaxies from millions of light-years away. This gravitational dance is what keeps galaxies arranged in clusters and filaments, preventing them from drifting into total randomness. But within the gaps of that structure, the void reigns supreme. Scientific institutions that study the large-scale structure of the universe, such as those working with the Sloan Digital Sky Survey, have found that these voids make up the majority of the universe's volume. We live in a reality that is mostly empty space, a vast network of thin silences where galaxies are merely the bright, rare intersections. The light year is the measure of that dominance, reminding us that for every year of light spent inside a star-filled galaxy, there are millions of years of light spent in the empty dark. The journey across intergalactic space is a journey through a time that exceeds human comprehension. When we observe light from a distant galaxy in the Coma Cluster, we are receiving photons that have been traveling through the thin silence for over 300 million years. These photons have crossed the void while the Earth saw the rise of the first dinosaurs, their eventual extinction, and the slow evolution of every creature that has ever walked the planet. The light year is the chronological weight of that journey. It tells us that the silence between galaxies is not just a gap in space, but a gap in the very fabric of history. To be in intergalactic space is to be in a place where time has no landmarks, where the only progress is the steady, unceasing movement of light toward a destination it may not reach for aeons. There is a strange paradoxical peace to be found in contemplating the intergalactic void. On Earth, we are often overwhelmed by the noise and the density of our lives. We are surrounded by objects, people, and constant sensory input. But the universe is not. The universe is primarily a place of rest, a place of thin sill, hence, where nothing happens for millions of light years at a time. This vast emptiness is the background radiation of our existence. It provides the room for galaxies to grow, for stars to shine, and for life to develop in isolation. The void is not a threat, it is the spaciousness that allows the universe to be a place of order rather than a place of collision. By measuring this space in millions of light years, we are acknowledging the enormous buffer of peace that protects our world from the chaos of the infinite. As you ponder this thin silence, try to imagine yourself drifting in the center of a great intergalactic gap. In every direction for millions of light years, there is nothing but the dark and the occasional lonely atom. The nearest galaxy is so far away that it appears only as a faint glowing smudge, a distant island in an ocean of shadow. There is no wind here, no sound, and no sensation of movement. You are suspended in the ultimate equilibrium. This is the realm where the light year is at its most elegant. It is a single silver line connecting you to the distant shores of light. It is the assurance that even in the deepest void, the rules of the universe still apply. Light still moves at its fixed speed. Time still passes with its steady rhythm, and the distance is still perfectly accounted for. Intergalactic space also reminds us of the limits of our own reach. While we have learned to map our galaxy and understand our solar neighborhood, the gulfs between galaxies remain a frontier that we can only explore with our eyes. We are residents of a single island, and the light years that separate us from the others are too great for any physical journey we can currently imagine. But this limitation is also a form of sanctuary. The thin silence ensures each galaxy is a unique experiment in creating stars and life. It allows the diversity of the cosmos to flourish in separate, quiet rooms. We are not part of a crowded, interconnected mess. We are part of a grand, spacious gallery where every exhibit is given the room it needs to be understood in its own light. Rest now in the immense, quiet spaciousness of the intergalactic dark. The galaxies are far, the void is wide, and the silence is deep. You do not need to fill the emptiness with thoughts or worries. You only need to let it exist as a background for your own rest. Feel the weight of the world's noise fall away as you enter the realm of the millions of light years. You are safe in the transparency of the vacuum, protected by the very distances that define the universe. The whispering scientist invites you to let the thin silence be your lullaby, providing a sense of absolute calm and unburdened peace. The void is not a hole in the universe, it is the space where the universe breathes. The light is crossing the silence, the galaxies are drifting in their clusters, and time is passing with a grace that has no end. You are a part of a reality that is mostly made of peace, a reality where distance is the primary expression of order. Let the scale of the intergalactic gap soothe your mind, moving your focus away from the small and the cluttered and toward the vast and the pure. The light years are many, but they are all silent, all steady, and all true. Sleep now while the photons continue their million-year trek, and the thin silence of the void wraps you in a rest that is as deep as the space between the stars. You are at home in the vastness, and the silence is your friend. As we pull our perspective back even further, away from the lonely voids between individual galaxies, a grand and intricate pattern begins to emerge from the darkness. This is the large-scale structure of the universe, a gargantuan web of light and shadow that defines the very limits of what we can observe. To speak of this scale is to move beyond the million and into the billion light years. At this level of reality, individual stars and even entire galaxies are no longer the primary focus. They are merely the glowing dust that outlines a much larger, quieter architecture. Astronomers describe this as the cosmic web, a delicate, lacy network of filaments made of galaxies and dark matter, separated by vast spherical regions of absolute nothingness called supervoids. This is the structure of quiet, a blueprint of the cosmos that reveals how gravity and time have organized the infinite into a stable, enduring form. The light year is the thread that weaves this web together, a unit of measurement that now spans the entire history of the visible world. If you could visualize the universe at this scale, it would not look like a random scattering of points, but like a sponge or a collection of soap bubbles. The galaxies are not distributed evenly, they are drawn by gravity into long, thin strands that intersect at bright hubs called superclusters. Between these strands lie the voids, vast, hollow chambers of silence that can stretch for hundreds of millions of light-years. In these voids there are no stars to light the way and no galaxies to mark the passage of time. They are the ultimate reservoirs of peace in the universe, places where the thin silence we explored before is magnified to an unimaginable degree. The large-scale structure is a balance between these two extremes, the crowded, energetic filaments and the hollow, silent centers. By measuring this structure in billions of light-years, scientific organizations like the Max Planck Institute for Astrophysics can trace the evolution of the cosmos from its very first moments to the present day. The existence of this web is a testament to the slow and patient work of gravity. In the earliest days of the universe, matter was spread almost perfectly thin, with only the slightest ripples of density. Over billions of years, gravity acted on those tiny ripples, pulling matter together into the first filaments and clearing out the spaces in between. This process was not a violent explosion, but a gradual settling, a quiet rearrangement of the cosmic furniture. The light year is the measure of this patience. It tells us that the structures we see today are the result of movements that have been unfolding for nearly 14 billion years. The cosmic web is a record of that history, a physical manifestation of the passage of time on a scale that dwarfs the existence of planets, stars, and even the light they emit. It is a structure built by the slow, steady accumulation of light years. When we look at the cosmic web, we are also looking at the influence of the invisible. Most of the structure is not made of the glowing galaxies we can see, but of dark matter, a mysterious substance that provides the gravitational scaffolding for the entire universe. Dark matter is the silent partner of the light year. It creates the valleys and the ridges of the cosmic landscape, guiding the light as it travels across billions of kilometers. We can only map this structure by watching how the light from distant galaxies is bent and distorted as it passes through these invisible regions. This is the ultimate feat of astronomical observation, using the light year to measure the shape of the unseeable. It reminds us that the universe is far deeper and more complex than what our eyes can detect. The quiet we perceive is not an absence of activity, but a manifestation of forces that operate far beyond our sensory reach. There is a profound sense of security to be found in the large-scale structure of the universe. It suggests that even on the grandest possible scale, there is order and symmetry. The universe is not falling apart. It is held together by a network of connections that span the entirety of space and time. This structure provides a stable foundation for everything that exists within it. Whether you are a single atom in a void or a massive star in a supercluster, you are part of a coherent and organized whole. The billions of light years are not a measure of chaos, but a measure of the room the universe has to be structured. The whispering scientist invites you to contemplate this cosmic web as a grand, silent protector, a framework of light and gravity that ensures the universe remains a place of stability and grace. As you drift through this thought, imagine the vast, glowing filaments of the cosmic web stretching out in every direction around you. They are like silver veins of light crossing the dark, pulsing with the energy of 1 trillion suns. You are a resident of one of these filaments, a tiny point of light in a grand, interconnected design. But you are also surrounded by the great voids, the vast chambers of quiet that provide the balance to the light. Feel the scale of this structure as a weightless, supportive presence. You do not need to navigate the web, you only need to exist within its perfect measured geometry. The light years are the fibers of the universe's fabric, and they are strong enough to hold every galaxy in its proper place. The large-scale structure also teaches us the value of perspective. At the human scale, our lives feel filled with noise and movement. At the planetary scale, we see the cycles of the seasons and the orbits of the worlds, but at the cosmic scale, everything merges into a single static image of peace. The billion light-years turn the frantic activity of the universe into a quiet, frozen pattern. From this vantage point, there is no conflict, no hurry, and no urgency. There is only the structure, the beautiful, enduring arrangement of the quiet. By embracing this scale, you are allowing your mind to rest in the ultimate perspective. You are recognizing that your own life is part of a design so vast and so stable that it can never be truly disrupted. Rest now in the immense architecture of the cosmic quiet. The filaments are glowing, the voids are resting, and the web is holding firm. You are safe in the billion light years, protected by the very scale that defines the limits of the world. The whispery scientist encourages you to let the large-scale structure be your sanctuary tonight, providing a sense of absolute orientation and eternal belonging. The universe is not a void to be feared, but a web to be admired, a structure of light and time that has been billions of years in the making just to hold you in its quiet embrace. Feel the tension of the day dissolve as you align your rhythm with the slow gravitational settling of the cosmos. The light is moving through the filaments, the dark matter is guiding the way, and time is unfolding with a majesty that has no end. You are a part of the grandest story ever told, a story written in the light years and preserved in the structure of the quiet. Let the scale of the cosmic web soothe your spirit, moving your focus away from the fleeting and toward the enduring. The universe is wide, the structures are deep, and the quiet is absolute. Sleep now while the light continues its journey across the billions of light years, and the large-scale structure of the heavens wraps you in a rest that is as vast as the cosmos itself. You are home on the web, and the quiet is your peace. In the quiet solitude of our final exploration, we turn away from the cold mathematics of the vacuum and toward the interior landscape of the human heart. There is a specific kind of feeling that arises when we confront a light year, a sensation that is neither purely intellectual nor entirely physical, but belongs to a category we might call the emotional geometry of distance. For most of our lives, distance is a source of tension. It is the space between us and our goals, the gap between us and those we love, or the obstacle that prevents an immediate resolution. We are conditioned to see distance as something to be overcome, a challenge to be conquered by speed and effort. But the light year operates on a geometry that refuses to be conquered. It is a distance so vast that it dissolves our traditional anxieties about separation and replaces them with a profound, expansive sense of peace. This chapter is about how the scale of the cosmos, when viewed through the lens of the whispering scientist, does not diminish our importance but rather provides a spacious sanctuary where the frantic pace of human concern can finally find its rest. The emotional geometry of distance begins with the realization that some things are meant to be unreachable. On Earth, we suffer from the stress of proximity. We are constantly reachable by messages, surrounded by the noise of our neighbors, and pressured by the immediacy of our schedules. The light year is the ultimate antidote to this compression. It offers a scale of separation that is so total, it becomes a form of protection. When you look at a star that is 100 light-years away, you are looking at something that is safely beyond the reach of any earthly disturbance. No message can cross that gap instantly, no conflict can jump that void, no urgency can survive the journey. This distance creates a buffer of silence that is emotionally stabilizing. It reminds us that there are parts of the universe, vast, glowing, beautiful parts, that are entirely free from the noise of our daily lives. The light year is the measure of that freedom, providing a psychological horizon where we can place our worries and watch them grow smaller against the backdrop of the infinite. This shift in geometry also changes our relationship with time. On a human scale, we often feel as though we are running out of time, chasing a present moment that is constantly slipping through our fingers. But the light year teaches us that time is not a narrow, fleeting line, it is a deep and spacious medium. Because distance is time in the cosmos, the vastness of space is actually a vastness of duration. When we accept the million-year delays and the billion-year histories, we are effectively expanding our own internal clock. We stop measuring our worth by the second and start sensing our existence in the context of the eons. This does not make our lives feel shorter, it makes the universe feel more enduring. It suggests that we are residents of a reality that has plenty of room for patience. The emotional geometry of distance is the realization that the universe is not in a hurry, and therefore we don't have to be either. There is also a gentle humor in how our brains attempt to navigate this geometry. We use words like nearby for things trillions of kilometers away, and we call galaxies our neighbors when they are separated by gulfs that would swallow 1,000 lifetimes. This linguistic nesting is our way of making the infinite feel intimate. It is a sign of our desire for connection, even in the face of overwhelming scale. Scientific institutions that share these discoveries with the world are essentially helping us build an emotional map of the stars. They are providing us with the coordinates of wonder, allowing us to feel a sense of belonging in a place that has no air to breathe and no ground to stand on. By naming the stars and measuring the light years, we are claiming the void as our own, turning a cold physical fact into a warm, familiar territory of the mind. As you reflect on this emotional geometry, try to visualize the light years not as empty gaps, but as layers of soft, protective cushioning. Imagine that for every kilometer of noise and stress on Earth, there are 1 trillion kilometers of absolute, undisturbed quiet in the heavens. You are resting at the center of this immense sphere of silence. The distance between you and the furthest star is not a lonely abyss, it is a vast open field of possibility. It is the room the universe has provided for you to breathe, to think, and to exist without the pressure of the immediate. The stars are far away because they are respecting your space. They are shining from a distance so that you can see their light without being overwhelmed by their fire. This is the kindness of the light year, a distance that provides both visibility and safety. This geometry also allows us to reframe our sense of isolation. Often we fear being alone or disconnected from the world. But in the cosmos, isolation is the condition that allows complexity and beauty to thrive. Every star system is a unique experiment, protected by the light years from being homogenized or disrupted by its neighbors. Our own isolation on Earth is what has allowed our specific history, our specific biology, and our specific culture to develop into the rich tapestry it is today. The distance we can't comprehend is the very thing that has preserved us. Without the vast gaps of the light year, the universe would be a crowded, violent collision of energies. Instead, it is a spacious and orderly gallery. Feeling the geometry of this distance means recognizing that being separate is not the same as being lost. We are distinct, and we are held in place by the very void we once feared. Accepting the emotional geometry of distance also brings a sense of proportion to our grief and our joy. The light year is so large that it absorbs the peaks and valleys of our human experience, smoothing them into a long, steady baseline of existence. This does not mean our emotions don't matter. It means they are part of a much larger, more stable equilibrium. There is a profound comfort in knowing that while our lives are filled with change, the light of the stars remains constant, moving through the dark with a reliability that spans the centuries. The light year is the anchor that keeps our perspective from drifting too far into the small and the temporary. It reminds us that we are part of a solid and enduring architecture, a system where distance is the primary expression of stability. Rest now in the expansive geometry of the night. The light years are stretching out around you, providing a vast and silent room for your mind to find its peace. You are not a tiny speck in a cold void. You are a conscious observer at the heart of a beautifully measured and perfectly spaced reality. Feel the tension of the earthly scale dissolve as you align your spirit with the broad, quiet dimensions of the stars. The whispery scientist encourages you to let the distance be your comfort, a soft and endless horizon where your thoughts can drift without ever reaching a limit. The universe is wide, the spacing is true, and the silence is a gift. The light is on its journey, the stars are in their distant homes, and time is passing with a grace that honors every second. You are safe in the emotional geometry of the heavens, protected by the millions of light years that ensure the universe remains a place of order and beauty. Let the scale of the cosmos soothe your soul, moving your focus away from the crowded and toward the spacious. The light years are many, but they are all peaceful, all protective, and all yours to contemplate. Sleep now, while the distance remains a silent guardian, and the emotional geometry of the stars wraps you in a rest that is as deep and as quiet as the space between the galaxies. You are home in the vastness, and the distance is your peace. In the professional halls of astronomy, where data streams are analyzed and cosmic maps are drawn with exacting precision, the light year occasionally shares its territory with another more technical unit known as the parsec. To the uninitiated, the parsec might sound like a word from a different story, a jargon-heavy term reserved for those who speak in the cold language of equations. But to understand the true depth of our cosmic measurements, we must look at how the parsec and the light year work together like two different dialects of the same ancient language. The parsec, short for parallax second, is a unit born from the raw geometry of our orbit, representing the distance at which the Earth's journey around the Sun produces an apparent shift of 1 arcsecond in a star's position. It is a unit of the surveyor, a tool of the cartographer who needs to anchor every point in the sky to a specific, measurable angle. Yet even in the strictest scientific papers, the light year remains the soul of the conversation. While the parsec provides the measurement, the light year provides the meaning, and together they form the complete language of the stars. The whispering scientist invites you to see these units not as competitors, but as the two halves of a grander whole. If the parsec is the blueprint, the precise, geometric plotting of a building's foundations, then the light year is the experience of living within that space. 1 parsec is equal to roughly 3.26 light years. It is a slightly larger, sturdier block of space, used by researchers at institutions like the European Space Agency to maintain the absolute accuracy of their stellar catalogues. When scientists calculate the motion of the galaxy or the expansion rate of the universe, they often think in parsecs because the math is cleaner, directly tied to the observational shifts we see through our telescopes. However, the moment they turn to explain their findings, they almost always translate those figures back into light years. They do this because they know that a light year carries a narrative weight that a parsec lacks. A light year tells us how long the universe has been carrying a specific message, and that is a story our minds are designed to hear. This dual language of the stars is a reflection of how we interact with the infinite. We are a species that requires both precision and poetry. We need the parsec to ensure that our satellites are pointed in the right direction and that our maps of the dark matter are true. We need the certainty of geometry to feel that we have a grasp on the physical reality of the void. But we so need the light year to feel the passage of time and the depth of the history we are witnessing. To say that a star is 1 parsec away is a technical statement of position. To say it is 3¼ light years away is a meditative statement of duration. It acknowledges that the light entering our eyes has been traveling since a specific point in our own past. The parsec measures the room, but the light year measures the silence. By moving between these two units, we are able to maintain our scientific integrity without losing our sense of wonder. As we move beyond the parsec and deeper into the language of the stars, we begin to see how the universe itself dictates the terms of our conversation. On the largest scales, astronomers use kiloparsecs and megaparsecs, units that represent thousands and millions of parsecs respectively. These are the measures of galactic clusters and cosmic filaments, the grandest structures in existence. Yet even at these mind-bending distances, the light year remains the ultimate anchor for our intuition. A megaparsec is a colossal distance, but a million light years is a million years of history. The language of the stars is constantly trying to reconcile these two aspects, the physical gap and the temporal delay. It is a reminder that in the cosmos, you cannot have one without the other. To move through space is to move through time, and every word we use to describe the heavens must account for this fundamental entanglement. There is a profound stability in knowing that our language for the universe is so carefully calibrated. Whether we use the parsec or the light year, we are relying on a system of measurement that has been tested and refined by generations of observers. This shared language is what allows humanity to act as a single, collective eye, watching the universe from every corner of the globe and combining our ites into a unified whole. It provides a sense of continuity that spans the decades. An observation made in parsecs 50 years ago is still valid today, and it can be translated into light years for a new generation of dreamers. The language of the stars is a bridge across time, a way for us to share our understanding of the distance we can't comprehend across the barriers of culture and history. As you reflect on these different ways of speaking to the dark, try to imagine the universe as a vast, ancient text that we are slowly learning to read. Some chapters are written in the sharp, clear lines of geometry, while others are written in the soft, flowing prose of time. You do not need to be fluent in the technicalities to understand the essence of the story. The parsecs are the punctuation, the structural markers that keep the sentences from running together. The light years are the words themselves, the carriers of meaning and emotion. Together, they create a coherent and beautiful narrative of existence. You are a listener to this story, resting in the quiet space between the measurements and the meanings. The transition from parsec to light year is a gentle return to the human perspective. It is an admission that at the end of the day, we are not just measuring a void, we are observing a home. The light year is the unit that makes the galaxy feel like a residence rather than a laboratory. It connects the distant fires of the stars to the quiet warmth of our own lives. By choosing to think in light years as you drift towards sleep, you are choosing a language that is designed for rest. You are setting aside the rigorous demands of the surveyor and embracing the patient arrival of the messenger. The parsecs can wait for the morning light. For now, the light years are all you need to find your way into the deep. Rest now in the dual nature of this measured reality. The geometry is sound, the angles are precise, and the history is being delivered to you with every flicker of the stars. You are part of a reality that is well-defined and deeply felt. The whispering scientist encourages you to let the language of the stars be a soothing background hum, a rhythmic assurance that everything in the universe is exactly where it ought to be. The distances are vast, the units are many, but the message is always the same: you are a part of a grand, orderly, and patient cosmos. Feel the complexity of the parsec dissolve into the simplicity of the light year, and allow yourself to be carried away by the steady, unhurried flow of time. Light is crossing gaps, parsecs anchor the map, and the years are accumulating in the dark. You are safe in the measured vastness, protected by a language that has no end and a story that has no limits. Let the scale of the cosmic vocabulary soothe your spirit, moving your focus away from the technical and toward the eternal. The universe is speaking to you tonight in the language of the light, and it is telling you that there is plenty of room to rest. Sleep now, while the stars continue their silent conversation, and the measurements of the heavens wrap you in a peace that is as accurate as it is profound. You are home in the language of the stars, and the silence is your translation. How far is a light year, really? As we reach the final horizon of our exploration here at the Whispering Scientist, the question no longer feels like a riddle demanding a numerical answer, but like a quiet invitation to rest. We have traveled from the rhythmic steps of a human walk to the silent, sweeping curves of the cosmic web, and at every stage, we have found that the light year is more than a distance. It is a promise of endurance. To rest inside this vastness is to recognize that the universe is not a cold, empty, void threat, inning to swallow us, but a spacious and stable home that has been carefully prepared by the passage of time. The light year is the measure of that preparation, a unit that ensures everything in the cosmos is exactly where it needs to be to remain in balance. As you settle into these final thoughts, let the scale of the heavens become a weightless blanket, wrapping you in a reality that is far too large for urgency and far too deep for distress. Understanding the distance we can't comprehend has never required holding the full scale in your mind all at once. That was never the purpose of the journey. Instead, the goal has been to find comfort in the proportions. We have seen how light moves at a steady, unwavering pace, never hurrying and never slowing, and how this constant creates a universe of profound reliability. This reliability is the foundation of your rest tonight. Because light takes years to cross the gaps between stars, the universe is inherently protected from sudden, chaotic changes. The vast distances act as a temporal buffer, a grand filter that allows only the most enduring and steady signals to reach our shores. When you look at the night sky, you are witnessing a state of equilibrium that has persisted for centuries. This is the enduring vastness, a place where the now is replaced by a much larger, more stable sense of always living in a universe measured in light years means accepting that we are part of a narrative that does not belong to us alone. We are the recipients of ancient light, participants in a story that began billions of years before we were born and will continue for billions of years after we are gone. There is a deep ego-dissolving peace in this realization. It removes the heavy burden of being the center of the world. In the context of the cosmic web, our individual worries and the frantic pace of our modern lives are revealed to be as fleeting as the flicker of a distant spark. The light year provides the perspective we need to see that most of our anxieties are local, limited to a single planet and a few short years. Beyond our atmosphere, the universe remains quiet, orderly, and patient. By aligning your breath with the scale of the light year, you are stepping out of the small circle of stress and into the wide, calm field of the eternal. As you drift now toward the deepest part of your sleep, try to imagine the universe as a vast, dark cathedral of time. The pillars are the light years reaching up into the infinite. The stars are the soft candles burning in the distance. There is no sound here, no wind, and no pressure. The air is still, and the light is moving with a grace that has no equal. You are resting on a small blue world in one of the quiet corridors of this cathedral, and you are perfectly safe. The distances that once seemed so intimidating are now the very things that give you room to breathe. The millions of kilometers are not gaps to be feared, but a spaciousness that provides you with privacy and peace. You are not lost in the vastness, you are sheltered by it. The light year is the measure of your sanctuary, the proof that the universe has provided you with a home that is as deep as it is wide. Scientific organizations like the International Astronomical Union and the pioneers of space exploration have spent their lives mapping this cathedral, but even they eventually put down their pens and their instruments to simply look at the sky in wonder. They understand that while we can measure the light year with precision, we can only experience it through reflection. The light year is a bridge that connects our small lives to the grand destiny of the stars. It is the thread that weaves our brief seconds into the long, beautiful tapestry of cosmic history. By the time this understanding settles in your mind, distance no longer feels like separation. It feels like a connection. You are connected to the furthest galaxy by the steady arrival of its light, and you are connected to the beginning of time by the very space that surrounds you. There is no need to seek resolution or a definitive answer to the stars' mysteries. The universe does not require your comprehension to function. It only requires your presence. You are an observer, a quiet witness to a reality that is composed, stable, and immensely patient. Feel the rhythm of the cosmos in the steady rise and fall of your chest. You are breathing in time with the rotation of the galaxy and the expansion of the void. The light years are passing, the stars are shining, and the history of the world is being written in the arrival of the light. You do not need to do anything to participate in this grand design. You only need to exist. The enduring vastness is your rest, and the light year is your guide. Let the scale of the universe be the last thing on your mind as you drift away. Imagine the light that has been traveling for 1,000 years just to find its way to Earth tonight. It has crossed the silence, it has navigated the dark, and it has finally reached its destination. Like that light, you too have reached a place of rest. Your journey through the day is over, and the light years of the night are here to carry you into the deep. There is no hurry now. The stars will be there in the morning, and the galaxy will continue its slow, graceful turn while you sleep. You are resting inside a structure that has stood for billions of years and will stand for billions more. You are part of the enduring vastness, a resident of the light, and a traveler of the time. The distance we can't comprehend is finally understood not through the mind but through the spirit. It is the distance of peace. It's the distance of patience. It is the distance that light travels just to tell you that you are home. As the final whispers of this story fade into the silence, let the tranquility of the light year be your final thought. The universe is wide, the light is steady, and the time is yours to rest in. You have crossed the bridge, you have walked the filaments, and you have found the center of the quiet. Sleep now in the safety of the stars, and let the enduring vastness hold you in its ancient light-filled arms. The journey is complete, and the rest is absolute. I hope this deep dive into the cosmic scales has helped you find a sense of place and perspective in our magnificent universe. If you find peace in these quiet explorations, remember that the stars are always there, waiting to tell their stories whenever you are ready to listen. It has been a pleasure being your thought partner through the dark.